I started to slowly slide into a depression, dropped out of school, got dropped from the team, ultimately got to the place where I couldn't leave the house. And I just thought that I was broken. I was like, I want to make a movie. And that one decision totally changed my life. We begged, borrowed, and stole to get this 2-week tour off the ground. It got in the news. And then people started to hear about it. And then strangers would be like, hey, I saw ride a bull. We can help you get on a bull. Make a toast at a stranger's wedding. Like, my buddy's getting married. I got you. I can get you in. And we're like, whoa, what is happening? People were then starting to get inspired to do their list just because we were doing ours. When you do what you love, you actually inspire other people to do what they love. This 2-week road trip ended up lasting 12, 13 years. People on their deathbed, they don't regret the things they did, they regret the things they didn't do. You have gifts that only you can give to the world. You have a responsibility to act on those things. And I really believe that if more people did what they love, the world would be a better place.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Know Thyself podcast, where every single week we get the honor and privilege, filled with excitement, to be able to sit down with a beautiful mind and open heart and somebody that can share their life experiences and see what we can glean from it on the path of knowing ourselves and the world deeper and deeper. My guest today is a #1 New York Times bestselling author, a top motivational speaker, co-founder of The Buried Life, and as a star on the show, the MTV show, The Buried Life, traveled all around the world sharing his message and asking the essential question of what do you want to do before you die? He's been on various prominent shows like The Today Show and The Oprah Winfrey Show, and he shares his message of finding fulfillment all across the world. He is somebody that is a founder and creator now of the Bucket List Journal, which is now available, and we're going to dive into a little bit today. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. It's going to be filled with so many nuggets of wisdom and insights from his life, and reflecting on all of how the challenges we face in life often inform our path and allow us ultimately to discover the life we truly want to live. And so, without further ado, Ben Nemtin, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, excited to dive deep, man.
Yeah, excited to get to know thyself.
Yeah, let's do it. So good, man. Well, it's been a pleasure getting to connect with you a little bit more recently over the past few months, and getting to hear a little bit more of your story and see more of how you're impacting the world and showing up. It's really beautiful. And I know it's been a long time coming. You've been, this path has been really beautiful to see unfold. And I would love to just kind of open the floor for you to share a little bit of, oftentimes we look back on our path. For you, going through depression, the rugby era days, The Buried Life, and those pivotal moments of like deciding I got to change my friend group up, or I want to, go in this direction a little bit differently, and how that informed you to be who you are today in the way that you're sharing your message today. So if you can just walk us through a few of those pivotal moments and how they shaped you to where you're at today, we can go from there.
Yeah. Okay, good. I like that, actually. We'll jump from pivotal moment to pivotal
Sure.
moment. So pivotal moment number 1, I got really quite depressed out of what I felt like nowhere. Like I'd never been through any type of mental health crisis before. And I thought my life was really good. Like I was checking all the boxes. I had an academic scholarship. I had made the national rugby team. And this was kind of rugby on the west coast of Canada is like football in the south. It was just like the sport you played. And so I was on the under-19 national rugby team. I had some great friends. I was really enjoying this next chapter of going from high school into university. But I just put so much pressure on myself. Like I think I really like wanted people to like me. So I would just I try really hard. And we were training for the World Cup, and I played fly half. So I was kicking field goals, calling plays like quarterback, field goal kicker, punter, all in one position. And I had missed a big kick in a high school game, like at the end of the game in the championship. And I was thinking okay, fuck, that can't happen again. And I started to think about it at night, and I'd lose sleep. I got anxiety, and this loss of sleep, this pressure that I put on myself, I started to slowly slide into a depression. And I was unable to make decisions. Like I couldn't decide if I could go to school or not, or if I could go to practice or not. So my decision would be indecision.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't go to school, dropped out of school, wouldn't go to practice, got dropped from the team. Ultimately got to the place where I couldn't leave the house. And so my parents were freaking out because here's their kid who was, a couple months ago, A-type, going out, having a lot of fun, and now having trouble leaving the house. And I was just spiraling. And I didn't know that other people went through this, right? Like I didn't have a therapist. I hadn't talked to any of my friends about it. And I just thought that I was broken. And I didn't think I would come back. Like I was like, this is it, like I can't, get back on the team. Like, I don't know if I can get back into school. And thank God my friends came and literally like pulled me out of the house after I dropped out of school. And they're like, you're coming with us to work in a new town for the summer. And I was forced to like do things for myself. I got a job. I started talking about what I was going through. And I learned like, oh shit, like my friends have been through stuff as well. And then I got a bit of confidence. And then this is the pivotal thing. I started meeting young people that were different than the kids that I'd hung out with in high school. Creative people that would just like make things out of nowhere, or they'd started their own businesses, or they'd already traveled around the world. And I started to realize some people give me energy, some people drain me. And I was like, I need to be around people that give me energy. And there's this one kid from high school that started a clothing line right out of high school. And I was so enamored by the idea that he did this. I just wanted to get involved. Like I was like, can I help you do anything? And he was like, well, you can help me like get on some blogs. And so I got energy from doing this thing with him. And I thought, well, if he did that, I wonder what I could do. And I was like, I want to make a movie. I had always wanted to make a documentary. And there's only one kid that I knew that made documentaries or videos. And it was this kid from my neighborhood named Johnny. He'd taken my sister to prom, and I wasn't sure if they were dating or if they dated or not. So I was a little hesitant to reach out to him. But I called him up, and it turned out that he had another buddy that had sort of been talking to him about making something. So we called him, we called his older brother, and the four of us got together, and we're like, okay, we're going to make a documentary. No idea what it's going to be about. This is back in 2006, but we're just going to make a film in the summer. And like, that's where we got to at that point. But that was the first pivotal moment, because I was intentional about the people that I started to surround myself. And that one decision of trying to surround myself with people that inspire me would totally change my life to this day.
Yeah. Powerful. It's just so funny how seemingly at those times, in those moments where it seems like an insignificant decision of just like making a slight change in your trajectory, then puts you down a completely different path. And so from that moment, take us a little bit deeper, right? Because you got out of this funk that you were in, you started surrounding yourself with different individuals. And then where did that ultimately lead you to?
Well, I like to just also comment on the point you make, because I think a good visual for that is like if you hit a golf ball off by 1 degree, by the time it lands, it could be like 60 yards away from the pin.
Totally.
So the empowering idea is that you can change your life at any moment just by making small little shifts. And you may not know how you're going to actually end up being changed, but you have that power because it's just small little shifts that compound over time. And so, back to your question. So now we're like, okay, let's make this film. And then Johnny had been assigned a poem in English class, serendipitously. Yeah. The poem is called The Buried Life, 150-year-old poem. And this poet talked about how the day-to-day buries what you really want to do. You have these buried dreams, and you're inspired to go after them, but then the day-to-day buries them. And we're like, whoa, this guy talked about this 150 plus years ago, and we feel the same way. We're not the first people to feel like this. Why don't we take this name for our film? And because we were like, why haven't we done any of the things we've ever wanted to do? Like, we haven't even tried.
Right.
Like, we're just doing things we think we should do, but what do we actually want to do? And the only thing that made us get clarity on what we wanted was thinking about death. And that's why we came up with this question, what do you want to do before you die? Because the thought of death put things in perspective. And suddenly we realized we don't have much time. Yeah. Like, we're definitely going to die. So what do we want to do with the time left? And our bucket list actually just came from that question. Like, when we went around, we're like, well, what do we want to do before you die? There were so many ideas. We're like, well, let's do all these. And that's how the bucket list started to form. And so we thought, okay, great. This is what we'll do. We'll go after our list. But then we'll ask other people, what do you want to do before you die? And if we can help them, then we will. And we'll take a 2-week road trip in 2006, whether we walk, bike, or bore an RV to make this happen. And we'll film it, and that'll be it. And we'll show it to our friends afterwards, and it'll be great.
Yeah. So fascinating, man. Can you share a little bit of the poem just because it's powerful?
Yeah. So a few of the lines that I really like is, but often in the world's most crowded streets, but often in the din of strife, there rises an unspeakable desire after the knowledge of our buried life. And I think that that's when you feel and you experience that thing that you love so much, it's hard to forget that. But it's so easy to push it down the road because the day-to-day starts to bury what that like core purpose and truth is. And there's another really good line about following your true original course.
Yeah.
And that for me is everything,
Yeah.
and I think that's what I've been trying to do since then, is just to follow that my course and figure out what that is.
Yeah.
And what was cool about the list was it was liberating to write down what I really wanted to do. And then it was also liberating to share and talk about those things that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then we were surprised that people actually wanted to help us. And that's what happened on the tour. Was unexpectedly, we, begged, borrowed, and stole to get this like ragtag 2-week tour off the ground. Borrowed an RV, got a secondhand camera on eBay, and we left. We didn't even tell people what we were doing because it was like no one understood.
Yeah.
Like sometimes we put together these sponsorship packages and send them to companies, and they're like, "What? Like we're not going to pay for you to go." Like one response was like a booze-filled road trip, and so we're like, "Okay, I guess we're just going to have to." We threw parties as fundraisers. We worked 2 jobs throughout the school year. We're like, we only need 2 weeks, enough for gas, and then we're good. And but then it got in the news. And then people started to hear about it, and they go to our website and they see our bucket list. And then strangers would be like, "Hey, I saw ride a bull. We can help you get on a bull." Or I saw get up on a hot air balloon. I can call my friend at Remax, or make a toast at a stranger's wedding. Like, my buddy's getting married. I got you. I can get you in. And we're like, whoa, what is happening? Like, all these people want it. Like, we didn't think people would really care about our list. We were just going to do it for fun.
Yeah.
The real core of the doc was going to be helping other people. But people were then starting to get inspired to do their list just because we were doing ours. And that was another pivotal moment when I realized, oh shit, when you do what you love, you actually inspire other people to do what they love. So you encourage them to follow their true course by you staying true to you.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure you found many times, just by you staying true to who you are, doing this podcast, inspiring other people to be true to them. And I used to think it was super selfish to have these personal passions and goals. And, like there's things I needed to do. And I think we feel like that a lot. But it really is a win-win. You get to fulfill yourself. You get to inspire other people. And ultimately, I think you get to make a bigger impact because you're sort of channeling that true self. And so at that point, we knew none of that. We're just out there having a blast. And shit's just happening for us, right? And then people are sending us their dreams, asking for our help. And so we come back from that 2-week road trip. I'm like, whoa, that was crazy, And we're like, we got to keep doing this. Go back to school, fundraise throughout the year, buy a big old purple bus from this nudist that we met in Vancouver, and get a film crew the next summer to continue to film. And we got pretty big sponsors, Levi's, Palm Pilot at the time. And then we were like, bigger list items, help more people. And so it kicked off this adventure where this 2-week road trip ended up lasting 12, 13 years.
Wow. There's so many things that we just opened up that I want to touch on individually. First, from the poem, like there's 2 things that really stick out to me in that part of the poem, which you shared. One is like the feeling of like not expressing yourself after your buried life. Like there's this feeling of regret.
Yeah.
And then also, which is its own separate can of worms, is tracking our original course, which is interesting to dive down. We can a little bit later in the podcast, just because that's an interesting thought that we actually even do have an original course,
Right.
But I think there's so many different things that you touched on. One, the contemplation of our own morality being a catalyst to living a life of fulfillment, and how powerful that is. It's like one of the most powerful things we can actually do. And part of that is like seeing what would actually matter to me, when I'm 80 years old or 100 years old on my deathbed. And so many people just really regret what they haven't done. So if you want to speak to that, I think it's a really powerful understanding and thing to sit with.
Yeah. We're really nailing the pivotal moments, because this is another pivotal moment. Was I read a research paper by a psychologist named Tom Gilovich, which is kind of the reason why I wrote the journal. And he found that people on their deathbed, they don't regret the things they did, they regret the things they didn't do. But the thing that was so wild to me was that 76% of the people he asked on their deathbed, when he asked them, what's your number one regret? They said, not living my life for me, living for what I thought others wanted for me, or what was expected of me. And I thought, oh, that's a big problem. Like that's crazy that 3/4 of the population will realize too late that they blew it. I mean, I can't imagine that feeling. So I wanted to, one, give people permission to dream, and then two, give them the steps to actually hopefully achieve those things. Because I don't think it's as hard as we think to do these things. Yeah. Because I sort of stumbled into this thing, and I've been doing it for 10, 15 years. And I was like, why doesn't everyone do this? Like I'm not smarter than anybody else. I was just young, dumb, and broke enough to try in the beginning. And I realized that there's actually very simple things that you can do to make these things happen. And they corroborated with the research, because what Mr. Gilovich found was that the three main reasons why we don't achieve our personal passions, goals, bucket list dreams, whatever you call them. One, there's no deadlines. So something always is going to pop up that has a deadline in your life that's more important. So we continually push them. And we think we have all this time because we don't think about our death, and we realize too late that we're out of time. The second problem is that we're usually waiting to feel inspired to go after these things.
Yeah.
And the inspiration rarely hits. And then the last and the biggest is fear of what other people think, or fear of failure. So we can talk about how we get over those barriers, and that's what I was trying to do with the journal. And so, but at this point, we're just having the time of our life. We're on the road, right? We're helping other people. I'm being creative for the first time in my life, which I now know is a huge part of who I am. And I need that creative expression to be happy. I also want to make sure that I'm very clear that it wasn't just surrounding myself with other people that pulled me out of the depression.
Right.
It was a therapist. It was a number of different things. Like I have this mental health toolkit of things that I know are good for me. And I know that there's a ton of people that are really having a difficult time right now, more now than ever. And I think that, if you take one thing away from this, it's talk to a professional about what you're going through if you can. If you can't, talk with someone that you care about, that cares about you. Open up about it, talk about it. You're able to work through things a little bit easier when you talk about them. They're much scarier in your head. You also open the door for other people to come back to you when they eventually hit their challenge.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's normal to kind of go through these periods in your life where you are really having a tough time, and you actually learn things about yourself. Yeah. And you build empathy for other people, and it makes you who you are. So I just want to mention that, because I just didn't want it to feel like it was just a turnkey.
Totally.
Like, I'll hang out with Bob instead of Jim, and now I'm not depressed.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to know that our story is continually unfolding. Like, I'm sure those moments of depression, or where you were really struggling going through those challenges, they're difficult in the moment, but who you are today is so much more valuable to the world, and how you can show up. And like you spoke to, the empathy that you can carry, and the wisdom that you can share because of the firsthand experience of going through it. And it's like, going through tough shit really does shape us, and it's so cliche and we hear it all the time, but like, it's really actually important for us.
we really gotta let that land.
Yeah.
Also, it happens for different reasons. Like, if I didn't go through that, maybe I would have gone to the World Cup, had a great World Cup, and become this like semi-pro mediocre rugby player that maybe went to Europe for a couple of years and played in a club league and came back with like a busted ACL and started working at Applebee's.
Yeah. Totally. That's just why hitting that golf ball in the right direction is way more important than how hard you hit the golf ball.
Yeah.
Direction is more important than speed for sure. So a couple of things that you spoke to, just like really getting clear on what it is that we want. Because so often we live life based off the accumulated beliefs and the noise that we've created in our head, which aren't our voices, but it's tough to discern of what what truly matters to us, what we actually want. And so that's just such an important first step that you spoke to actually get clearer, to sit with yourself and see what actually do I value.
Correct. And that's sometimes a huge daunting task. And I think that it's important to make a distinction that you're not trying to figure out your life's purpose. Right? I like to look at it as, even if we think about, I like the framework of a list because it's digestible. You understand what it is. It's approachable. I even break it down into 10 different categories of life because I think it's even more approachable if you write your list in a structured way. So your list is like your purpose list. It's all the little things that you think are going to bring you purpose. So what does that even mean though? Like what is purpose? Well, for me, it's just anything that's makes me feel more alive or like myself, or is fun, things that I enjoy. So I instead of thinking about what you want to do, you can sort of use your feelings, right? So what excites you when you do it or when you think about it? What are you curious about in general? Can you just follow that curiosity? Is there anything that you do that gives you energy? Right? Like that's making you feel more like yourself. And I think that that's the goal. Hanging out with people that make you feel more like yourself.
Yeah.
Like we all know when we hang out with certain people that we just come out of that and we're fired up. And then there's other people where we sort of feel like Eeyore, So I think that it's listening to your body and how you're feeling and using that as your compass to kind of direct you. But it's a lot of trial and error. I think that you want to look at all of these goals and these passions. I don't think you want to look at them as dreams or big goals. I think you want to look at them as experiments or projects. Like dreams are overwhelming, right? But like a work project, you're just gonna like do the first step and just figure it out until you get it, right? Or an experiment, you're just curious what happens. Like this is all you're doing. You're just like entering all these situations with curiosity, be like, oh, is this actually something I want to do? And then when you find something, you think, wow, okay, great. I'm going to do more of this.
Yeah. Powerful. There's so many things that we can dive into from that alone. I want to just kind of go over the 10 categories because I think that's helpful for people to get clear on the different avenues that what we can go after in life that really fulfill us. So you have the 10 here, which are 1, travel and adventure, 2, physical health, 3, material, 4, creative, 5, professional, 6, financial, 7, intellectual, 8, mental health, 9, relationships, and 10, giving. And I think it's so important what you're speaking to get clarity on what you actually want in these 10 categories and in your life in general. And then in the actual pursuit of going after it, you shining your light unconsciously gives people permission to shine their light. Mm-hmm. And so I think what you spoke to is like such a daunting task to figure out. I feel like I have to figure out my purpose and like have that one thing that I'm here, the reason I'm here for. And it can feel like a lot of pressure. And, it's a narrative that's going around a lot these days. And I think it's just important to find what really makes us come most alive. And then in the pursuing of it, that is going to be so inspiring for other people to do whatever makes them come most alive. And we need more people that are doing what makes them come alive. So that is very inspirational and transformational for the world.
I completely agree. And I don't think it's even hyperbolic to think that like this will change the world. I really believe that if more people did what they loved, the world would be a better place. And it doesn't have to be your work. Like you don't have to make money from doing what you love. If you do, it's great. But also it's a double-edged sword because then this thing that you love becomes a business and that can be tricky. So you look at all these people doing what they love and building a career, well, there's also challenges with that. So I don't think that's necessarily the big goal. The big goal is to have a balanced life where you feel like you are aligned with who you truly are, and you're doing all of the things in your life that support that true self. And the first step is writing it down, because it actually forces you to stop and reflect and think about it. So if 76% of the population are reaching the end of their life regretting not being themselves, it's important we actually stop and think about, like, what do I want? And then it's like, okay, you wrote it down. Now that's like a contract with yourself, right? It's actually powerful. Now it's real. It's not an idea, it's a thought. It's like, this is actually a tangible thing that keeps you accountable. So I told you the problem is we have no deadlines. Well, the antidote to having no deadlines is accountability. So how do you create accountability around your goals? You write them down. You talk about them. Because if I tell you, I'm going to learn jujitsu this year, this is my big thing, right? And you say, great. And I run into you and you're like, I run to you at Erewhon. You're like, how's jujitsu coming? I'm like, fuck, I better sign up for jujitsu. Right. So like, you feel accountable to the people you shared it with.
Yeah.
If you post on social, this year I'm writing a book, you announce on the podcast, I'm going to write a book this year. You're more likely to write a book because people can be like, hey,
totally,
how's it going? How's the book going? So you talk about it, but when you talk about it, you got to move through the fear of what other people think or fear of failure. But we can touch on that. So building accountability, another way you can do that is you can have an accountability partner. And if you think about it, all we have in the workplace are structures of accountability. Leaders keep us accountable.
Right.
We don't want to let down our team. We don't want to look bad. Salary is like a reward that keeps us accountable. So in the journal, you set a deadline. You set a reward for yourself when you do it. You choose an accountability buddy, and you want to communicate that to them. You're training for a marathon. It's like, okay, let's go. You, me, we're doing the marathon together. You're going to have a higher chance of doing the marathon if you train with a partner. Yeah. But that goes for anything that you do and you decide to do in your life, is if you can get someone to check in with you down the road, or you send regular updates to that person. So that's why the app trackers work when you're training, because like you're basically sending, oh, I ran today. Boom, here's this, like all my stats, and that drives everybody forward.
Yeah.
So the accountability is really big. And then, you kind of start to think about, okay, how do you get over this problem where you're never really ready to do it, or you never feel inspired?
Yeah.
Well, you create your own inspiration by taking action.
Yeah.
You just take little small steps. You start to build inspiration, and then you start to feel it. And the more you feel it, the more momentum you build. And you're never going to be ready, right? You're never going to not have the fear. And you see people that like are doing great stuff, and you're like, oh, they're just, I guess they don't feel that fear. Like, no, they do.
They just feel it and do it anyway.
They just know that's not going away.
Yeah.
And that's actually, that discomfort is growth. Like that means that's positive. That's a net positive for them, because you push yourself, you fall flat on your face. At least you learn something about yourself. Now you have this information to take with you when you do the next thing.
Yeah.
And you're really just, again, like uncovering that true original course. This is you uncovering your true original course. Failure is it's how you have to fail, because that's you understanding, okay, I'm good at this. I'm not good at this. I didn't like that. I like that. And you're just slowly uncovering this true original course in your buried life, which is, it never stops. You're constantly trying to figure out, how can I be truer and truer to myself?
Yeah. Yeah. And it can be difficult in a world that is so result oriented to become process oriented, and to have the perspective shift of not just saying, hey, what do I want to achieve in my life, but what do I really want to experience from the inside out? And I think that can also help inform when writing down what we actually truly want to go after. It's not just like the excitement of doing something that sounds cool, but like what actually has meaning to us and like will actually feel fulfilling once we experience it.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool to have a spectrum of, things that are just like want to be fun, but then also the things that like really mean more to us, and I feel like those have more energetic weight to us in the memories we hold.
Yes. And that at the end of the day is all we have, the memories that we hold. I don't know if you've read Die with Zero. It's a great book that talks about, well, that you should die with zero. Shocker. But really what he's talking about is that you want to collect memories because that's all you have, and you can't do anything with your money when you die. And so that if you die with $180,000, you actually, let's say you make $90K a year, you work 2 years too long. You should have just taken that 2 years and gone and experienced life. And everyone's like, well, what about like your kids and blah, blah. It's like, yeah, okay, then take money and give it to your kids while you're alive, right? Like, and too many people die with too much money. And we have this, this culture of work, and climb up the ladder. And I'm sure you've experienced too. Right now, I have a lot of friends. They're kind of hitting that point in their life where they've reached success. And now they're thinking, okay, wait, like what do I want? Like, do I want to be partner at the law firm, or do I want to become an account executive at Apple, or do I want to, like, they're doing really well and they've been grinding it out. Now it's happening. And they're suddenly like, oh shit, is this what I want? And you don't think about it sometimes. And so it's really important to check in and make sure that you're aligned and know that it's okay if it changes.
Yeah.
Right? Like I went through another pivotal moment about 7 years ago. I had started a production company with the 3 Buried Life guys after we did the show and the first book and stuff. And we were like, okay, let's make TV. And we did a couple of shows, and it was working, but it was really fucking hard.
Yeah.
And we got investment, and this was it. We did it. We succeeded. And then I thought, oh no, I hate this. And I was talking with my uncle, and he was a producer his whole life. And I was Uncle Bill. He's since passed away. He's such a great guy. And I was like, Uncle Bill, I don't know what to do. I've spent 3 years building this thing, and now I'm just going to let it go. Like, what about all the work I put in, and what am I going to do? And he said, well, you're not starting your career again. You're recycling your career. You're taking everything that you learned from producing, and now you're going to apply it to your next thing. He's like, I think we should recycle our career as much as we need to. And that shifted my whole perspective of like, oh yeah, I'm not actually starting from the beginning. I'm just taking everything I learned. And I think that it's okay to recycle your career if you aren't feeling energized and fulfilled by it. And that for me was the shift from producing to speaking. And I didn't know that I was going to be a speaker. I mean, I still like laugh when I think that I am a motivational speaker. It's very odd, but it just happened because I did a TEDx talk. I started doing little talks, and people kept asking me to speak, and then cut to now, it takes up most of my time, and I love it. And it all came from this shift of thinking, I'm not starting at the bottom rung again.
Yeah.
But we have this idea that it's all about climbing the ladder. And if you change now, it's a huge opportunity cost.
Yeah.
But I another quick story. This is kind of thinking about family. My cousin, probably the most successful guy I know, runs major companies. Every 7 years, without fail, he takes 1 year off. And right at the peak, right when everyone's like, oh my God, you're leaving?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I told you this is what, you knew this is what you were signing up for. Takes a year off with his family, goes and just bees with them and travels and stuff like that. And every time he comes back, he levels up.
Mm.
So, I think it's okay to think about recycling your career.
Yeah. It's just so important to experience what you don't want just as much as it is to experience what you do want, because without that clarity and experiencing the things that you thought you maybe wanted at one point, but realize after experiencing they don't actually mean a whole lot to you, or they're not exciting or filling you up, or they don't give you energy, then that's just going to lead you to a path of ultimately not being fulfilled. And so it's coming back into discovering what we truly want by virtue of discovering what we don't want. And a lot of times that experience comes from jobs, relationships, so many different things that happen and unfold in our life that we don't want at the time, but are really pivotal in shaping us to who we are. And then we become individuals where, as we grow and evolve on our own journey, our desires mature as we mature. Like there's this evolution of desire that naturally is going to come. And no matter what successful individual you talk to, as they grow, their desires for what they want in their life change, whether they're
Exactly.
a big person in the music industry or somebody in sports or somebody in public speaking or whatever kind of job or, mission that we're pursuing in life is going to evolve as we evolve. And to be able to kind of surrender ourselves to the flow of that and to know that's a part of the process, I think allows a lot of the suffering to kind of be relinquished along the journey. And, you've even seen it on your own path as you've gone on this journey from crossing off all these kind of pleasurable experiences on the bucket list that are exciting and doing it with your friends, and then realize that the ones that were most fulfilling were the ones that you were giving to others and making other people's dreams come true. And I think that evolution of that arc of kind of starting out on our crossing those lists of the things that we want to do for ourselves, and then they kind of evolve into being of service in some way. And so do you want to share, because there's more things I want to dive into, but first I would love for you to share a little bit more of some actual things that you did, like where this journey took you to some pretty crazy places. And so what were some of the craziest things that you were able to check off your list, and then the evolution of it will come to?
Yeah. So we, everything from surviving on a deserted island for like 4 or 5 days. We just got pushed off of a boat in the Cook Islands blindfolded and swam to this island, and with no training. We were just like, if we went down in a plane, like Lost was big at that time, the show. So like, could we survive? To, streaking a field and trying to get away, to playing basketball with Obama, to, there was one thing was trying to ask out the girl of your dreams. And so this is like during the Transformers series when Megan Fox was just the top of the top. And so I snuck onto the red carpet and pretended I was a reporter, and like I just totally choked when she was in front of me and completely failed. And then my friend Duncan, like, he the next year had to make up for it, and so he asked out Taylor Swift, and that actually worked. They went on a date.
Wow.
Yeah, and we wanted to throw the most badass party ever. We tried to get Jay-Z to come to a house party. It didn't work, but we ended up getting Naughty by Nature to come to this party that we did up in St. Louis Obispo, which was like in a big skate bowl, which was so much fun. And we had a beer with Prince Harry. That was a good one. Make a TV show was one of the list items.
Right.
And so that was something that was really important for us to make it for our friends. Like, we were able to executive produce it, so we were in control, and like took years off our life, but we were super proud of it.
Yeah.
And then on the helping side, in the early days, we helped a guy get a truck he was living in a homeless shelter, and he wanted to start a landscaping business. So we helped him get a truck, and we helped this guy who had cancer, who was sleeping on an air mattress in his house. By the way, we never helped anybody. We just were able to find people to help them. So you did help them. Yeah, I guess. But I think that the distinction, I think, is that we weren't Make-A-Wish.
Yeah.
We weren't coming in with money to pay for things.
Yeah.
But we found that if you give someone a chance to help, they will take it. So we went to a local church that was in the community with this guy that was sleeping on an air mattress, and he had lung cancer. So it was like painful for him to get in and out of this air, like blow up mattress. And the whole, everyone at the church like came over and just brought stuff from their house to furnish his house. And we helped a girl in, after Katrina, she had lost her mom, and she actually didn't know where her mom was buried because she died on a bus when they had taken people out of the city, and she was buried in Denver. And so we helped find the grave and take her to the grave. And we helped someone get his song on the LA morning show, on the radio, Big Boy, in the morning, and helped this girl overcome her fear of heights. Another cool one was help 4 guys reconnect after 40 years. They were friends as teens growing up, and they would spend time every summer because their families would. And they hadn't seen each other in 40 years, and we surprised them all. And right away, they were back to being 14-year-old kids.
I love that.
And they would meet up every summer. And then, unfortunately, one of the guys passed away from cancer. And he said that it was like one of the most meaningful things in recent years was being able to reconnect with all those guys. And so, I mean, it's funny that, I don't know if funny is the right description, but it's interesting that the top 5 regrets of the dying don't have much to do with money, right? One is, I wish I would have stayed in contact with friends. So here's these guys that just life got in the way. It's not a difficult problem to solve. Like, pick up the phone, plan a trip. And so that's why the relationship category in the journal is important, because, those are the things that tend to slide. And so, yeah, it's cool. It's fun to see two people after the talks start to do the things that they want to do. Like one woman took her mom to Ireland because she was born there and like she was getting too old to go back. One woman took her dad to Abbey Road because he's a huge Beatles fan, and they did this like full Beatles tour and stuff. And then she learned all about this new stuff about her dad, of why he liked the Beatles and how it was just like a very bonding experience for them. So yeah, it's been a fun. That's the coolest, I think, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful to see the evolution of it, and to just know that once you start the path and you just begin your journey and walking in the direction that you truly want to go and that matters to you, it's like the universe conspires in ways you can't see to help provide resources, connections, individuals to make that happen. And when you wake up and you're playing basketball with the president of the United States, or you're getting to do cool things like get a bionic arm for a girl who lost her limb, like it's really beautiful to see the places that will go once we start moving in the direction that means the most to us.
I think that can't be understated. And I keep learning that again and again and again as I get pulled away from who I truly am, because inevitably that happens. Like, you will get buried by different things. And about a year and a half ago, I sort of shifted my focus on trying to be much more aligned with the things that I truly wanted, or my full expression. And I just felt kind of this capped potential or something. I don't know. And it was, part of it was like a relationship that wasn't quite right. And part of it was, the work that I was doing. And since then, I started to remember how life used to happen for me. It's like it unfolded in this magical way. And that was trusting my true self, my spiritual self, my authentic self, to kind of lead the way. And that intuition that really, all those things are the same thing, right? We're talking about that inner knowing of what it is you want and who you are, because you have gifts that only you can give to the world. And there's this great quote by Les Brown. I'm going to butcher it, but I'm going to give it a shot. It's, imagine you're laying on your deathbed and these ghosts come to your side of your bed, and it's the ghost of all your ideas you never acted on, the dreams you never did, the gifts you never realized. And the ghosts come to you on your like final hours, and they're like, we came to you when you were alive, and only you could have brought us to life, and you didn't. And now we're here to die with you. It's like, oh, brutal.
Tough.
Yeah. So, and no one else can bring those ideas, those talents into the world. Only you. You have a responsibility to act on those things, at least so you know that you tried and you don't have those regrets at the end of your life. And it's hard to listen to that voice because it doesn't always make sense. Like, the intellectual self is always rationalizing, and it's very easy for the intellect to drown out the spiritual self.
Yeah.
So it's tapping into that with journaling, being quiet, meditation, whatever, just asking it, for messages. What do I need right now? And following that.
Beautiful, man. Yeah, I feel like the most audacious and fulfilling bucket list item is to just know and love yourself completely. And you being on this path of having a lot of bucket list items that you've crossed off in your life and encouraging others to do the same, now coming to this place where you're authentically and transparently claiming your true self to the best that you know how, and like going on this path the past couple, year and a half. I think it's just a really important point that one comes to eventually on their journey, where it's less outward focused and a lot more inward focused, because then when we shine that light and discover who we are, that the radiance that we cultivate from that space just is like an exponential factor in actually service to the world. And sometimes we're so overly focused on the activity that we're doing, but like not who we are and not discovering who we are. And so what's been a little bit more of your journey, if you want to share, of claiming your true authentic self? What does that even look like? And how does that change your behavior in your life, and what you value and prioritize?
Well, two things. One, I started working with an energy healer about 3 months ago, which was completely new for me. And it was, I had to sort of take a jump to trust that this was going to do something, because it was all virtual and I couldn't, like, my rational mind couldn't understand how this. And basically he was processing old trauma and also reprogramming patterns that I had adopted when I was young, or ancestral trauma and ancestral patterns. So breathing into different parts of my body to release these different traumas and patterns. And I started to process things that I didn't realize I hadn't processed from when I was younger, when I was really depressed, and then ancestral stuff that had been passed on that I couldn't even kind of see what the memory was, but I could feel it. And that was almost out of necessity, because I had been working so hard. Like, I did 150 keynotes this year, which is way too many. And there's this point when I did 8 keynotes in 8 cities in 8 days. And I was just battered. Like, my body was like, there's all these weird things that was happening to my body. And so I was like, I need to figure out what's going on. And those symptoms started to subside. And so that was a really, the first step for me. And then the second was, I just finished Hoffman process in Northern California, which was definitely the most transformational week of my life. We talked about it before, but Hoffman, for those of you that don't know about it, is like a 1 week, I don't want to call it a retreat, because he's definitely not taking time off, but it's a process that they have been doing for 50 years and tinkering with for the last 50 years, started by a guy named Bob Hoffman. And really it's a journey to your true self. It's getting in touch with your spiritual self. It's aligning your intellect, your body, your emotional self, and your spiritual self, and creating attunement so that then you can be led by your spiritual self. And it's a lot of it is just going from head to heart. And but the thing that was interesting, because you mentioned about self-love, it's like a lot of it is around self-love. And the thing that I realized is, like, self-love for me is presence. So I was trying to make a list of all the things that I could do to give myself self-love. And I was like actually asking people, I'm like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? And then I realized, like, oh shit, all these things, it's just presence. Anything that I do that brings me into the present moment is self-love. A conversation where I'm actually there with the person. Sports, where I'm not thinking about the future or the past. I'm in flow. I'm just there. Meditation, journaling, enjoying my food, like wiggling my toes so I know that I'm actually here in my body. Like, all these things give me a sense of presence, and that's self-love, because you can't love yourself in the future. You can't love yourself in the past, because you're not in the future or the past. You're only right here. And so realizing that is really key for me, because before Hoffman, I was very... I was not in the present. I was always thinking, I had so much stuff going on, and I still have the same amount of shit going on, but I just don't really care as much. Like, and the thing that's also interesting is that bigger things are happening, because I'm not just doing it to do it. I'm being more. Instead of doing, I'm being, and life is clicking into place in a bigger way. And I'm more relaxed. I'm, happier. And so it was this could be a 1 hour ad for Hoffman, by the way, because it's fucking great and I could talk about it all day. But I think that was really cool is when they start talking about this process. They start talking about like being true to yourself and your spiritual self and your authentic self. And I was like, oh my God, this is my life's purpose, is to bring people back to their true self. And they're talking about how important it is. And I realized that I'm not the work. I don't work. I am the work. Like I need to be the work 100%. So it's so important for me to do that work so that I could be better at what I do. So it was a very transformational experience.
Yeah. I could only imagine. I'm glad that I'm getting you on the heels of what you say is the most transformational week of your life, because that's one, quite the statement.
Yeah.
And two, there's so much, I'm sure, still in the process of integration of what you're unpacking from that whole experience.
Yeah.
Was there something like a year and a half ago that like really kicked you into gear, saying like, I need to change something?
Yeah. I was in a relationship that was not right for both of us. It's really hard to leave. Long relationship. And I decided like we need to figure out how to uncouple. And
that'll do it.
Yeah, and so that was, and then, out of that, we both started feeling more like ourselves and remembered. So that was a shift.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's insidious in ways that we can't really see at the time, where like, I'm sure if you asked a bunch of people, like if they feel like they're living their true self or their true life or doing the things that matter to them, they would say, yeah, but ultimately we can't be held accountable to what we're not aware of. And a lot of times we're just unaware of how out of alignment we are.
Mm-hmm.
And it requires getting smacked in the face by life with a big breakup or, a traumatic experience or a big collision in our life to like wake up to realize like, oh, actually, no, I'm not living in alignment with my true original course.
Yeah.
And those are difficult, but needed.
100%. Because it's like, I have friends with different autoimmune diseases or they're struggling with things, but you sort of, if you're feeling 75%, then that becomes your 100% because you forget what feeling good or really good actually is like. And so you got to figure out a way to see the forest from the trees.
Yeah.
And that's why, all these types of new experiences are helpful. And you're never clear on those types of big decisions. It's never black and white. It's always muddy and complicated. So you just can only trust your gut. And so that was one of the big times that I started to do that. And I made a vow to myself. So I was like, okay, I have to continue. I'm never going to not listen to my gut again. Yeah.
Because the pain is so strong when you don't listen to that over a period of time the longer you don't listen to it, the longer life is going to have to smack you in the face to get back to listening to it, And so you just coming to this point where you're discovering, like re-listening to your true self and listening to that inner voice, I think is just really beautiful. And it goes hand in hand to living a life that is truly fulfilling for you. So I'm curious, like, as you've gone through that process of like the separation of the relationship to working with an energy healer to doing the Hoffman process, how do you feel like, you spoke to it a little bit, but how is your external reality changing on the other side of you making the shifts internally?
Well, dare I say I'm the happiest I've ever been. I mean, I feel like that is I don't know why I feel guilty or I feel like I shouldn't say that, but I do feel the best I've ever felt. Just content and excited. And every day I wake up, I'm really excited to see what the day is going to bring. And then from a work perspective, it's just this year was double last year. I mean, it's just the biggest year by far. And so many new opportunities and also so many great connections with new friends. Yeah. Like community is just so rich and so many people that I love to spend time with. And so that next year I'm actually going to, I've made conscious decisions to, bring down the travel and have more time here in Venice and around my friends and that type of thing so that I can I can take advantage of that because I know that that's the most important. Like, I'm not going to remember making 20% more, right? But like doing 20% less is going to make such a huge difference in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like the more that you get clear on who you are, you become a vibratory match to people who are themselves authentically. And like you
Mm-hmm.
become a match to those kind of connections and those friendships where you can totally be in the full acceptance of each other and like just be in the play of that.
Yeah. Which is a big thing. And so one of the things I realized through Hoffman and getting an experience of all these different people from different parts of the country at different stages of life with very different trauma,
Yeah.
coming to one place. And you do these different experiential exercises and stuff. And I realized that when we did some of the stuff that was just fun and just play, like some people hadn't done that for 40 years.
Mm.
And I'm lucky that like I've always done that. It's just, been something that my dad is a performer and like he's a really funny guy. And so through high school and it's always been part of who I am. But I realized like I think a lot of people have a big piece missing in their life, which is just playing, have fun, being weird. Like, it's so important to kind of access that inner child. And I think you get old when you stop playing, and you don't stop playing because you get old.
Powerful. That's just, I totally resonate with that. I think it's so, so important. And we all maybe have experienced those 80, 90, 100-year-olds who are like the silliest in the room. And
Yeah.
like, that is so beautiful, because we all know the alternative where there's a lot of older individuals that unfortunately have just gotten crushed by life.
They won't allow themselves to do it. There's just not an option.
Yeah.
They just decided this is not cool for me to do anymore and I won't do it. And you can see it on their faces,
Right.
like when people come up to me after talks, I know what they're going to say before they say it. And I can see it in their face when they say this one thing, which is, this is how I live my life. I'm like, I know, I can see it. You're fucking beaming.
Yeah.
You're 50 and you look 30.
Yeah.
And that's because they practice that. Like they play, they listen to themselves, they follow those things that bring them joy and it keeps them young.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of the individuals that don't have access to it within themselves in the moment, or like you said, like don't make the decision to, a lot of times it's like an unconscious process because their belief systems have been like calloused over and it's like what they think is possible or how they can express themselves. It's so hard to break out of the rigidity of who you have been to become who you can be.
Totally. Because most of the time that's developed when you're young, and so these patterns are just deeply ingrained in your brain where it's not even a choice. Like there's no decision. It happens before you make the choice. And so you need to rewire those pathways in your brain and it's hard, but you like, just by doing it, if it's uncomfortable, if you never dance, you're like, I don't dance. And you dance the first time, it's fucking hard, right? Yeah. But you do it and then your body starts to create this new pathway where over and over and over again, then you start to be someone that does dance. And the big thing I think is that you want to create the awareness that these are patterns and that they're not you, right? And so that then you have a choice. So when it happens, it's not just the automatic reaction. It's like you have space. So then you have a choice where you can decide if you want to do the same thing or you have the ability to do something different because you're not that. That's just your pattern of what you always do. And you can decide if you want to take a different path.
Yeah, and that path unfolds. It's like we're often under the illusion that we feel like we have to force or figure out our path a lot of times intellectually. And the path just unfolds for us if we just move in that direction. It's like if we were going to drive from California to New York, we can't see the whole way, right? But like at nighttime, the lights on our car illuminate the first, the next 100 feet ahead of us. And then we just keep going and we see further as we get further. And that path unfolds for us. And it takes a lot of the tension away from your experience and being on the journey because there's like a deeper trust in life that it's unfolding and you kind of meet life halfway in the spontaneous, surprise of each moment. And then we can come back into viewing success as like, actually, how present are we? because a lot of times it's like success is once I get to New York, that's success. But like being at the end of your life, just jumping to that right now, that's not success. Like I want to live my life, you know, and to be present is to live our life fully. And so I just love that you're reclaiming more of that presence into your life. And I can feel it from you in conversations before the podcast that like you're here and I'm excited for you to keep claiming more and more of that. And like we all are, I think it's really, it's the fruit of the path to fully embrace the present moment, because yes, at the end of our life, memories are very important. And also the level of presence that we have, I feel like is equally or more important, because if we're not being present to be able to experience life around us, then we're just in our old reconditioned belief systems, and that's not experiencing life. That's our projection of it. And so I'm excited for you as this evolution. I can't wait to see what unfolds as who knows what will change and transform with public speaking, or a completely new field or arena that you might jump into, depending upon what comes from this new like revelation and insight that you're having in your own life. And as you already shared, like it's just giving more power to you, more connections, more resources, work is expanding. And oftentimes I feel like we have this fear of letting go who we have been, because it creates a certain level of certainty and safety in our experience. But then when you kind of release that and step into more of who you truly are, then life surprises you in ways you can't even comprehend. That is so much more impactful than we could ever dream of. So, yeah, man, there's just been so many nuggets throughout this whole podcast that you've been sharing that I've been loving. And I'm excited for the audience to sit with. And
yeah, no, it's been a cool journey, because I feel as though I never thought of myself as a spiritual person, you know, like I knew spiritual people, you know, but I never identified with being a spiritual person.
They go to Erewhon and they wear the Vibram hats.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I don't know where to put those hats in my house. Like, where do I hang them on the wall? It's like whole thing. Gotta travel with a box. I was like, that's not for me. I'm not spiritual. But, you know, after, you know, the past couple weeks, I've just, I finally, I think, identified with some bigger truths that make me feel like I have tapped into that a little bit more. You know, things like nature and the importance of just that I am the same as nature, and that like if I ever feel like I'm losing touch with my spiritual self, you know, I just need to go out in nature and I'll reconnect with that. And I knew that intellectually, but I didn't feel it.
Right.
And I literally thought before, like a couple of months ago, I remember thinking, like, I wonder when I'm actually going to really understand that nature's important, because I know it is, but I still don't do it. And I talk about it, but I don't really do it all the time. I was like, I wonder when I'm really going to actually like embody that and do it and feel it. And now I get it. And so it's big things like that. And then the presence and stuff, and just how important is it of everything, right? Like that's, and self-love, and just being, you know, kind to yourself and compassionate and understanding that if you do that, then you can be compassionate for other people. And that like everyone's guilty, but like no one's to blame. So you just need to understand that everyone that does something that you feel vindictive about, they did it because they've been programmed from stuff that happened to them when they were younger, and that they can change as well, but you know, they may not, and that's fine. They're still guilty, but they're not to blame. Yeah. And then you don't feel that type of, you're not tethered to them.
Yeah.
Right. You don't have that, I got to get revenge, or, you know, you forgive, and then they lose their power, you know, over you. And like, you know, if you're mad at someone, it doesn't do anything to them. Right? Like it's just, you're just beating yourself up.
Yeah. It's like that saying that like fear, anger, they're poisons we drink and expect the other person to die.
Yeah.
You know, and
drink it. Like, hey.
Drink it. I'm going to get you. And then you're slowly withering away in the corner.
Yeah.
And it just speaks to like most people are regretting what, you know, not living life for themselves. And I think we spoke to so many frameworks, understandings, perceptions, and tools to be able to get clear on what we actually want in our life. And from that place, we can become more vibrant and be present on the path. And for you as an individual now, what would you say is like your number one bucket list item?
Well, I'm going to Japan over New Year's, so I'm very excited for that. I want to finish the documentary. So we started Buried Life, 2006, and it started as a film. And we just never finished it. And we've been filming the whole journey. And so I've gotten all the footage on drives, and we're looking back at all the footage, and it's just it's a cool experience to look back at us, at that age. And so I think it'd be a really important piece for to leave behind, to give people that spark that we felt, and hopefully inspire them to start their path, and follow those things that are important to them.
Beautiful, man. And I'm just sure, obviously, by virtue of doing speaking engagements and people coming up to you and, the reflections that you've given, you, I'm sure, have seen firsthand many times the impact that you've had on people. But I'm sure in a much larger percentage, you have no idea how impactful the decisions that you've made have been to people, and the speaking that you do, and the book that you're writing, and the way that you're showing up, and the potential documentary that you're going to create. And so it feels good to know that we're living a life that in a way that is in accordance to being of service and supporting others. And I think that's something that you can be very proud of yourself for.
Thank you. Yeah. Appreciate that, bro.
Of course, man. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience before we kind of transition soon?
I don't think so. The bucket list journal's on Amazon. Write your list, share with us.
Yeah. Let us know in the comments below. What's something that was an insight from this conversation, this podcast, and also what's something that you really want to go after. And we can hold each other accountable to seeing that comes to be. You guys can all check out the Bucket List Journal on Amazon, and Ben at bennemtin.com, or at bennemtin on Instagram, and anywhere else you want to drive people to.
I did actually have one thing that I realized I want to add
Please.
To my list. Buy a white brimmed hat now that I'm spiritual.
I think you need, but then you got to have a box, bro. That's the whole thing.
That's the next thing. I had two things. It's the whole thing. Yeah. Where do you even put that? Overhead bin? I see people they tie it to their bag.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, you really want to wear that hat that bad? You're going to bring that to Tulum? Come on.
I'm going to hold you accountable to this. Next time I see you, you don't have this hat on.
Ordering my magic smoothie at Erewhon, I'll be. Yeah, I'll tip my brim to you.
$25 smoothie.
That's right.
That's it. Awesome. Thank you all so much for tuning into this episode of the Know Thyself podcast. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. We're trying to spread this message of empowerment and awakening to the masses. And you can help with that by hitting the subscribe button. Appreciate you all so much. And until next time, be well.